Welcome back, everyone, to another week of our continued study of Haftaros. This week, we have the privilege of reading a double parsha of Acharei Mot-Kedoshim, and the Haftara that likely we read for Acharei Mot-Kedoshim is Halo Kibnei Kushim Atemli, a famous Haftara from the very last parak, the very end of Sefer Amos. I say it's likely that we read it because this week is subject to, I think, really the biggest machlokas in the world of Haftaras, in terms of what the proper Haftara is. This is a suggestion in the Mishnah that we read from Sefer Yechezkel, very harsh Haftara, and that's rejected. And the Ramah actually paskins in Siman Tov Chav Ches, Sif Ches, Ukshekarin Beis Parshios, when you have a double parsha, Maftirin Ba'achrona. Right, so the Haftarah would be this week Acharei Mot-Kedoshim. We read from Kedoshim. Mi levad, says the Ramah, one exception. Ba'acharei Mot-Kedoshim de Maftirim Halo B'nei Kushim Shehi Haftarat Acharei Mos. So there's really three chidushim in the Ramah. The first is that the normal rule is, if you read a double parsha, the Haftarah that you read is from the second of the parshios, not from the first. The second chiddush of the Ramah is that the Haftarah of Halo Kibnei Kushim Atemli is the Haftarah for Acharei Mos, not for Kedoshim. That's a machlokus between the Sfaradim and the Ashkenazim. And the third is, nonetheless, we read it when there's a double parsha. So there must be something, I would think, and I do think, there must be something really important about Halo Kibnei Kushim, because more or less, either it's the Haftarah of Kedoshim, so you read in the double parsha, it's the Haftarah of Acharei Mos, but nevertheless, it's an exception to the rule, and you read it when you have the double parsha. But we're always going to read Halo Kibnei Kushim Atemli. And the question is, what makes our Haftarah so unique? It also happens to be that our Haftarah is the shortest Haftarah of the year. I think it's 9 pesukim. I didn't count. It's really, really short. And, it's hard to imagine that the Chachmei HaMasor, that Chazal, loved the Haftarah so much because it was short. But it's something to consider. Okay, now, before we get to an answer, and we will, I hope, let's talk about what type of Haftarah it is. I personally, when we come to Haftarah, I want to know, is it a Haftarah of the Tochacha? Is it a Haftarah of Puranus? Is it a mean Haftarah? Is it a Tshuva Haftarah? Is it a supportive Haftarah? A Haftarah of Nechama? Is it, what we would say, is it a happy Haftarah or is it a sad Haftarah? And our Haftarah, it's really hard to give an answer to that. We will give an answer, but it's hard because there are harsh parts and there are very, very soft parts and consoling parts and supportive parts. And maybe in the end, that's what makes our Haftarah so unique. But why don't we start where we normally start, which is, what's the connection between our Haftarah and Parshas Acharei Mos and Kedoshim? And here, I guess we have to know something about a Haftarah to decide what the connection is. And the connection, I think it's pretty obvious, but first a word on the Haftarah. It seems to me that the Haftarah is focused on the question of Bechira / chosenness, meaning HaKadosh Baruch Hu chose Avram Avinu. Could that Bechira, and he chose his descendants, us, could that Bechira, God forbid, ever be reversed? Could it be that HaKadosh Baruch Hu chose Avraham, so long as, and in fact, to a certain extent that's true, so long as we're good? And if we stop being good, then the Bechira will expire, and God forbid, can choose someone else. So it turns out that's a theme in Amos, and it's a theme in Haftarah, but it's a huge, huge issue in Jewish philosophy. If you go back to the choice of Avraham Avinu, there's a big, big machlokas there. There's a famous Maral that Moreno Rav Lichtenstein did not like at all. The Maral says that Avraham Avinu, the Torah doesn't give us any background information on Avraham Avinu. Yes, Chazal fill it in, but the Torah just starts with Lech Lecha Me'atzcha Mi'Moladatecha. as opposed to Noach, where there's always Noach ish tzadik tamim haya b'dorotav et ha'alokim italech Noach, right? There's an introduction to Noach. Noach was a tzaddik. So how could it be? So Maharal very interestingly says that if God chose Avraham for a reason, then if that reason ever expired, it would be, like the Mishnah says in Pirkei Avos, in avat tluya b'davar, batel hadavar, batel ahava. If the reason ever went away, then the choice would be canceled. And so HaKadosh Baruch Hu, says the Maharal, chose Avraham not for any particular reason. Yes, Avraham was a tzaddik, he had all these things, but he chose him simply because he chose him. And therefore, that choice can never be canceled. Whereas for us, most of us think, Rav Epstein thought that Avraham was chosen for a reason. And that's not pshat in the Mishnah. I mean, the Mishnah that says, an avat tuyoda b'davar, that batel davad, batel ava. So I remember he said, maybe we should just go marry some random girls who have no redeeming midos, because we'll have done it for no reason. And therefore, if we did it for no reason, the ahava would never be canceled. Anyway, that's the discussion in our Haftara. That's really the discussion in all of Sefer Amos. Our Haftara starts in not even the whole parak, right? It's so short. It starts in pasuk Zayin of parak Tet, and the pasuk says, "Halo kibnei kushiyim atem li bnei Yisrael neum Adonai, halo at Yisrael ha'aleiti me'eretz Mitzrayim u'plishtim mikaftor va'aram mikir." It seems pretty obvious. The Amos is saying, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to us, you are, and there's a lot of pshatim here, but I'll just go with the one that I like the most. It's like saying you're Spaniards, you're Frenchmen, you're Brits. There's nothing unique about you, right? You're just like any other country. And then we say to God, what are you talking about? Halo Yisrael aleitem me'eretz Mitzrayim. On the one hand, Yetzias Mitzrayim wasn't such a big deal. Didn't that show your love for us? Didn't that show how unique we are? And the Navi says no. Just like Plishtim mikaftor va'ara mikir. I redeemed many, many nations and brought them back from many, many different places. And the fact that I took you back from Mitzrayim doesn't make you more unique than any other nation. I think, that's the reading of the first pasuk, and it's reminiscent of the theme of Amos. In the first parak, it's very famous. Damascus sinned 3 times, and I redeemed them. The 4th time I won't. I'm skipping. Al Shoshapi Shei Tzor, Kol Hashem Al Shoshapi Shei Edom, Kol Hashem Al Shoshapi Shei Bnei Ammon, and finally, no, not even, Kol Hashem Al Shoshapi Shei Moav, and finally, Kol Hashem Al Shoshapi Shei Yehuda, V'al Arba'a Lo Ashivenu. Right? One of the themes seems to be, are we unique, or are we just one of the nations? And so now we go back to our Haftara. Well, so first of all, so that's the theme, and what's the connection to our parsha? And it works both for Acharei Mot and Kedoshim. Let's start with Kedoshim. The Psukim say in Perek Chaf, starting with Pasuk Chaf Bet, Ushemartem et kol chukotai v'et kol mishpatai v'asitem otam, v'lo taki etchem haaretz asher ani mevi etchem shama lo shevet ba. Right, the land won't kick you out or shouldn't kick you out if you keep my rules. V'lo selchu b'chukot hagoy Hashem ani mishalach mipnechem ki et kalela asu v'akutzbam. Right, don't follow the path of the Gentiles because I reject them. V'omar lachem atem tishuat atmatam v'ani etnen lachem loreshet ota eretz zavat chol v'dvash ani Adonai Elohechem asher v'dalti etchem min ha'amim. Now, the theme of chosenness is clearly emphasized and highlighted at the end of Kedoshim, and it could be a Haftarah. Sometimes Haftarahs are, the opposite, right? I want you to learn lesson X, so we learn something that's not X, right? It's a contradiction, but that's the theme. So that's one possibility. The other possibility is no, it's exactly the same. The Psukim in Kedoshim are telling us how unique we are, how special we are, And maybe Amos is also going to say the same thing. Same type of idea exists in Acharei Mot, which is why it could be the Haftara for either of them. Says the Torah in Parak Yud Ches, Al titamu b'chol leila, ki b'chol leila nitmu hagoyim asher ani v'shalach mipnechem, v'titma haaretz v'avkod avona aleh, v'ataki haaretz et yoshveha, etc., etc. The uniqueness, the specialness, the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will never cancel us. So that's the theme of Haftara. But now we have to understand exactly, is the Haftara a happy one? Is it supportive of us? So we saw the first pasuk, and the first pasuk is kind of scary. And it continues the Haftara. Hinei einei Adonai Elohim b'mamlacha chata'a v'ishmarti ota me'al pnei ha'adama efes kilo hashmeid ashmid et beit Yaakov num Adonai. Two parts of that pasuk. In the first part of the pasuk, yes, God is angry at us and He's going to destroy us. But all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Efes kilo hashmeid ashmid et beit Yaakov. I'm not going to destroy all of Beit Yaakov. Now, one of the possible pshatim is that Amos was prophesying for the 10 tribes, for Yisrael, not Yehudah. Yehudah will remain untouched. Yisrael might be destroyed or might be exiled as it was, and they haven't come back yet, as far as we know. Okay, that's another possibility. Next pasuk. Hinei anochi mitzaveh v'anioti b'chol hagoyim et beit Yisrael ka'asher yinoah b'kivara v'lo yipol tzor aretz. Right? God is going to be so upset with us, He's going to shake us up like we're in a sieve. Again, two pshatim. One will be destroyed. The other is, no, a sieve, the people who don't fall through the little holes, they'll be saved. The people who fall through the little holes, they'll be destroyed. God will destroy the Rishaim, but He'll maintain us. Continues the Navi. Bacher v'yamutu kol chataei ami, homrim lo sagish v'taktim ba'adenu hara'ah. God is going to destroy with the sword all the sinners. But which sinners? Says the Navi. Homrim lo tagish v'taktim ba'adenu hara'ah. The people who say, God will never do that to us. We're safe. We're chosen. We're the children of Avinu. Says the HaKadosh Baruch Hu, no, those people, the people who claim that, the people who say, God will never destroy the Beit HaMikdash, Heichal Hashem, Heichal Hashem, Heichal Hashem, like the famous pasuk in Yirmiyahu. People who claim it could never happen to us, they'll be destroyed. Because it can, at least in theory. We shouldn't be too self-confident, because it would be a problem if we are. And then a famous pasuk: Bayomahu akim et sukat David hanofelet v'gadarti et pirtzehem v'asirotav akim uvniti akimei olam. Bayomahu akim et sukat David hanofelet, with the segol, not with his shva. We all sing and say over and over again, sukat David hanofelas. It turns out that's wrong. I was thinking for a second, maybe it's because it comes, it's not, when we sing it, it's the end of the pasuk, quote unquote, so it gets the shva. I doubt it. I don't know. But the pasuk is Sukat David hanofelet. Now, what does the metaphor mean? It's always troubled me. So one possibility is, well, first of all, a sukkah is obviously fragile. It's temporary. And normally you would say if a sukkah fell, you wouldn't rebuild it. You'd get a new one. Okay, it's a sukkah. It's not a house. So it fell down. So you'll get a new one. But no. The point is, we are fragile, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu can destroy us. We're a sukkah, we're not a bayit. But He's going to choose not to. The sukkah David hanofelet is not going, it's going to be mekim. God is going to hold it up. He's going to rebuild it. He's going to reestablish it. So it could be, it's a form of support for us. Don't think, or even if something bad happens, even if you're exiled, you'll come back. Right, which is what happened. More importantly, it's Sukkot David. Amos is prophesying for Beit Yisrael, for the 10 tribes, for the Shomanim. So it could be part of the HaKadosh Baruch Hu saying, I may punish them, but Sukkot David, the descendants of David HaMelech, the real chosen people, they'll never ever be destroyed. Okay, possible. So we have this tension, and we've seen it over and over again, between we're chosen we're safe, we're the people God loves, and our chosenness doesn't prove anything and doesn't protect us, and we have to worry about that. And that's not just, some minor theme. That goes to the essence of who we are. That's the most important thing. Are the Jewish people chosen and never be rejected? Or are we chosen if? And to a certain extent, both things are true. And then comes really the happiest part in the end of Amos. Hinei yamim ba'im nu'um Adonai v'nigash choresh ba'kotzer v'dorei chanavim b'moshe chazora v'itifu ha'arim asis v'chol ha'gvaot titmogagna. Right? We're going to do so well that the harvest will run into the kotzer, and the kotzer will run into the harvest, and we'll be harvesting things when we plant again. The seasons will run into each other. That's a sign of prosperity. And God is saying it'll be good. V'shavti et shivut ami Yisrael uvanu arim neshamot v'yashavu v'natu chramim v'shatu et yeinam v'asu ganot v'achlu et priyehem. Exactly the same thing. And finally, last pasuk. Unitatim alad matam. Right? I'll put them in the land. I'll plant them in the land. V'lo yinatshu od me'alad matam. Asher natati lahem amar Hashem Elokecha. The end of the Haftara is clearly inspiring and clearly positive and clearly supportive of us. And I think that's not just the beauty of the Haftara. I think that's why it's so important to the Chachamei Masorah that we read Halo Kimnei Kushiyim Heim this week. It's so important because this is who we are. The tension between is our chosenness permanent or can it be lost? Of course we can be punished and of course we can be exiled, and we know that. And it reminds me a little bit of the time we're in now. And this week we celebrated Yom Ha'atzmaut. Is it permanent? We want Eretz Yisrael to be permanent. We want Medinat Yisrael as Reshit Smichat Gulaten. We want it to be permanent. God forbid that we'd ever be exiled again. But we have to know that that's contingent. It's absolute in that God will never destroy us. But our treatment from HaKadosh Baruch Hu depends on our treatment to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And I think that's why it's such an important Haftara. That's why it's a very positive Haftara, in my opinion at least. But it's a Haftara that has to be learned slowly and has to be dealt with. There are negative psukim. There are crushing psukim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu can punish us and does punish us. And, not that long ago, these bad things happened to us. But the hope is that we'll recognize it and we won't be amongst the people who say, it doesn't matter how I behave, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's chosen me. I'm a descendant of Avraham Avinu. No, we don't want to be that. We want to be the people who are deserving. Yes, we're descendants of Avraham Avinu. And yes, we're chosen. And that Bechira will never really be rejected. But we want it to be a Bechira, to pick the phrase I used before, Hatfuya b'davar. We want to be the best people. We want to be unique people. Part of it is because HaKadosh Baruch Hu chose us. And part of it is because we chose HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And those things together make this week's parasha special, make this week's Haftara special, and makes it one that Chazal loved very, very much. Shabbat Shalom to all of you.